Hello, everybody. This is Miss Carter, and I'm here to go over your mystery substance lab with you. Uh, for those of you that were absent, or if you were having some difficulties with it, hopefully this will help to clarify how you find the uh, missing substances. Okay? All right, so let's start off at the beginning here. Um, First thing you're going to do is you obviously are going to launch the mystery lab right here. Um, When you do, it is going to bring you to the Gizmos webpage, and you are going to want to log in. Don't just click launch browser or launch Gizmo. Make sure you log in, and then you're going to collect the data on there. If you have questions on that, email either Miss Mills or myself, and we'll show you. We'll kind of talk to you through that part. This particular video is more about the substances themselves. So for the substances, let's go back here. The first page here is all about just collecting the data for the first test tube, which was test tube B, the baking soda. Beyond there,
that was what, 33 and 35. 33 was her, but yes, 35.
Sorry, guys. Beyond there, we are down to page 2. And on this page is where you're looking at the unknown substances. For the unknown substances, you start off with substances. I'm sorry, let me back up. This actually is for the known substances, and that is on the first 5 things. You're going to fill this in, again, by testing those solutions like you did on the first page. And answer these questions the same way. Which of these came up as acid? Which of these came up as base, vinegar, so on. Then, question number 3, again, you have to have that table to be able to answer it. But anyway, let's move down to this part here, because this is actually the part that I wanted to go over more specifically. So for this first table, you are testing tubes 1 through 5. And every one of those only has one substance in it. So that is going to be no different than this right here, okay? It's not going to be in the same order, like it's not going to be baking powder, baking soda, cornstarch, but they're going to be the same answers, okay? So if you have, like say, appearance is, fine, and then litmus is base, and then vinegar is no, and then burette is no, and iodine is yes. If you have all of that, it should match up with something on the other data table. So this one here is where this discussion actually starts. So these here are where you're combining 2 different substances of those 5. And so when you fill this all out, it should look like this here. Oops, sorry, let me go back one. It should look like this here. Your first data table, the very first one, not the 1 through 5, but the very first one should look like this, okay? So when you filled it all in, minus the highlighting. The highlighting I did to kind of help us understand this. But the first one should look like this. If it doesn't, you need to change yours because you tested something wrong or something came up wrong. This here is for the 6 through 10. Okay, so I'm going to kind of walk you through a couple of these and see how you determine exactly what type of substance it is. Okay, so we're going to use this information up here. The key thing to this, guys, is you want to find the things that are unique. Okay, you want to find the things that are only true for one substance, or maybe only true for 2 substances, and then that'll help you to narrow down the correct substance. So, for example, this one right here, Biuret protein, has only one of the substances that came up yes on it, and that is gelatin. And so anytime we see anything purple under protein, we know it has to have gelatin. Okay, it doesn't matter if it turned completely purple or if it only had purple spots in it. It doesn't matter. It is going to have gelatin in it. Okay, so we start there. We start with that column. So this one right here, next to both, or next underneath Biuret, underneath protein, it has both. So what that means is it turned some purple. Doesn't matter how much, it turns some purple. So because of that, it's going to have gelatin. Okay, so we type in, it'll let me, there we go, gelatin. Okay, then after that, we're going to, after the biuret column, we're going to look at the litmus column, the acid or base. Okay, because again, you have some individual stuff here, some unique stuff. Acid only showed up for gelatin. Base only showed up for baking soda. So we can kind of work with that. The litmus on ours for number 6 was acid. So this one is the only acid. So that tells us it's gelatin, but we already have gelatin down, so it didn't help us a whole lot that time. All right. Then after litmus, we look at appearance. Okay. So my appearance for number 6 says both. So it had both grain, or it had both fine and had coarse. Okay. It had the white powder and it also had the rock looking stuff on it. So because of that, that means I'm going to have one of mine be fine and one of mine is going to be coarse. Okay. So with that, what that means is that gelatin, which we already know we have, gives us the coarse. Okay. It says we have to have one fine, one coarse. Well, gelatin gives us the coarse. So that means the other one has got to be a fine one. Okay. And so it's going to be one of these 3 right here. And so that's going to kind of help us a little bit further down the road. Next thing we look at is vinegar and iodine. Vinegar says no. Iodine says yes. So we know it's got to be one of these 3 because it has to be a fine because we already have the coarse. And so since it's got to be one of these 3, we're looking for one of those 3 that says no on vinegar and yes for iodine. Well, the only one that says no for vinegar and yes for iodine is cornstarch. So that means that our second one is cornstarch. Okay? And those are our two substances that were part of that powder. Okay? Now, you're going to follow that exact same path every single time. Okay? I'm going to go through a couple more just so you can kind of see how this all works. Okay? Number 7. Number 7, again, we start off with protein. Okay? We start with protein. So number 7 says both. So again, since it has any purple in it whatsoever, we know it's got to have gelatin. So we put in gelatin. Then, next thing we look at is its litmus test. Okay, so the litmus right here says neutral. Now, neutral could mean that it's just neutral. So it could be one of these neutrals here, baking powder, cornstarch, salt. It could be that. However, the gelatin throws a wrench in the situation, a little bit of a kink into it. And what that means is that if you look at gelatin, its litmus is actually acid. Okay? And so you can't have this acid in here and it turn out neutral. Okay? Acid will always beat out neutral. Base will always beat out neutral. So if it's neutral here, that means you've got to have something else kind of acting with that acid or against that acid to make it go to neutral. Okay? Well, it's kind of like in math. If you have a negative, to get back to neutral, you get back to 0, you got to have a positive, right? Well, the opposite of acid here is base. So since gelatin is our acid and we got to get to neutral, we need this base. Okay? And so that base right here, that baking soda, has got to be our second one. Okay? So those are our two missing substances. All right. Number 8. Number 8, again, exact same way. We start with protein. Okay? Protein right here. So it says no. So since it says no, our other one said both, so we knew it had gelatin. Well, this time it says no, so we know that it does not have gelatin, okay? Absolutely no gelatin. So then we go on to litmus. Our litmus says neutral. Again, with it being neutral, it could be an acid and a base acting together, or it could just be neutral. Well, this one can't be an acid and a base because, remember, the only acid is gelatin. And we just said we can't have gelatin because the protein test was no. Okay? So it's got to be one of these neutrals. Actually, 2 of the neutrals. Okay? So the choices that we have are salt, cornstarch, and baking powder. So those three are kind of what you're going to use to decide what are the missing substances. So that's the appearance. That's the litmus, sorry. Now we move on to appearance. Appearance says both. So again, both means I'm going to have a fine and I'm going to have a coarse. Well, in order for that to work, and we're saying we're neutral, 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 then we've got to kind of equal that all out. So I need a fine and a coarse. Well, this neutral is fine. This neutral is fine. This neutral is coarse. So since it's the only coarse that is also neutral, we know that one of our two elements or two materials has got to be salt because we need it to be neutral. We need it to be coarse. So it's got to be salt. Okay, because the other coarse is acid. And that's not going to work. So salt is our first substance. Then, so our other two options, our other two neutrals are cornstarch and baking powder. So now we look at vinegar and iodine. So cornstarch and baking soda, both of ours are yeses. So the only thing between baking powder, I think I said soda earlier, baking powder and cornstarch, the only thing that is yes, yes for both of them is baking powder. So our answer would be baking powder, okay, because it fits that category. All right, we're going to do one more just because this is going to help you later on as well. For question 3, I think it is on the assignment. So right here, again, we start exactly the same. Start with protein. All right, this one says no, so we know it does not have gelatin. All right, so then we're going to go to litmus. All right, well, it says base. Well, there's only one base, and that is right here, and that is baking soda. So we know it's got to be baking soda. Okay, there we go. Now, after litmus, we then go to appearance. Well, it says fine. All right, so this time, since it's fine, it's going to be these three. Well, we already know that it's baking soda. So now we're down to baking powder or cornstarch as our second one. All right, and so now we got yes for vinegar and yes for iodine. Well, just like what we just did, yes, yes, vinegar, iodine automatically makes us think baking powder, okay? And that is a possibility. However, something else is going to kind of play in here. So we can put baking powder, okay? The other thing that plays in here is I need one yes and one yes for vinegar, one yes for iodine total, okay? Well, since I know baking soda is one of them, baking soda already gives me a yes for vinegar, okay? So all I really need is a yes for iodine. Well, baking powder gives me a yes for iodine, but so does cornstarch, okay? So because of that, cornstarch is a possibility, all right? And so with that, this one could be baking soda, baking powder, or baking soda, cornstarch. Okay, there's actually 3 possibilities for that one. There's too many variables to really say for 100%. Okay, so the reason I bring that up is that on your assignment, this question right here asks that very question. It says, in the 2 substance mixtures you have investigated so far, are there any situations where there is more than one correct answer? Okay, well, that right there tells us yes. All right, that there were more than one possibility for that, more than 2 possibilities for that. And so then you would kind of just explain that, yes, it was on number 9 and what happened. Okay, all right, after that, get this to scroll down. You have 11 through 15, which now you're dealing with 3 different powders. For that, you're going to do the exact same stuff. There it is on this slide. So you're going to do the exact same things. You're going to use the same table to compare it to. This time we're going to take that information and we're going to find 3 substances for each. But it's done the same way. You're going to say, first off, look at the protein. Secondly, look at the litmus. Third, look at the appearance. Fourth, look at vinegar and iodine. Okay? Now, a little bit of a heads up. There are going to be more of them here that have the possibility of more than 2, or more than 3, actually. Okay. And so as long as you have the ones that it could be, 3 of the ones that it could be, you're fine. Okay. All right. Last thing on here is these 2 questions right here. Letter A says, why is it hard to tell if a mixture contains salt? If you look at salt here, salt is coarse for its appearance, neutral litmus, so it means it's not going to set off the litmus paper either way. Vinegar, there's no bubbles, so that's not a good indicator. Biuret, no, it's not going to turn purple. Iodine, no, it's not going to turn purple, so there's no starch. Basically, salt is kind of boring, okay? It doesn't have any really good indicators there. And so because of that, with those indicators, it is very difficult at times to determine whether or not one of the substances that you're dealing with could be salt, okay? Because when it's added in there, especially if gelatin is one of them already, if it's not, if it's a both, or it's, and it's not just fine, it's hard to determine if salt is in there, okay? Because it doesn't set off any red lights. It doesn't set off any markers, okay? So that's basically, excuse me, that's basically it. Excuse me, is that those indicators, which these things are what we call the indicators, it doesn't have enough of them that are unique, that are different, okay? And then letter B, how can you tell if a sample contains baking soda and cornstarch or baking powder? Same type of thing. You're going to look here, and you're going to try and find exactly which of these tests is going to make it unique, is going to make it stand out. So if I have just baking powder, if I highlight this, it's going to let me, compared to, let me highlight this purple, okay, and compared to a combo of these 2, how can I tell which one it is? Like if I give you 2 test tubes of powder, one has just baking powder, one has baking soda cornstarch in it, how do you determine which one it is? Well, there's one specific thing that is kind of different here, and it is this litmus test right here, okay? So look at the litmus test. I don't want to give you the complete answer there, but I will tell you that that's where you're going to look. And so look at that and determine how that's going to help me, okay? How that's going to help you determine whether or not it's the combo or if it's just baking powder, okay? All right. I think that's all I've got for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and post this video. And if you have any questions, like I said, about this or about any other parts, please feel free to email me or Miss Mills, and we'll help you out. Thanks, guys. Bye.